Let's have a closer look at what happened at the second test day in Bahrain 2022. Let's start with Red Bull. They used keel probes in their side pod inlet and next to the TV camera. We can see the airlines running along the bodywork downwards to the blister where transducers are located that turn the pressure into an electric signal. Red Bull also used flow-vis at the side to analyze the flow. And here we can see how they adjust the right height of the front axle with these shims at the pull rod. At Mercedes we could see their B-spec side pods without cover for the first time. It looks like the cover we talked about yesterday is an access cover for a device next to the crash tube. The rear mirror stays are still a big discussion. Rule 364 only says that when cut by any X-plane, it needs to form a single section, and it shouldn't be wider as the mirror housing, which the Mercedes design fulfills. The rule doesn't say it cannot be multiple elements. So, as long as one of the elements is connected to the mirror housing, the whole cascade can be declared as rear mirror stay, and it's fairly easy to legalize that. Great interpretation of the rules here. And we need to have a closer look at this Mercedes coke rake. Usually, these frames are cheap laser-cut metal frames and every keel probe has an airline. Altogether they create a huge bundle with lots of blockage and run to the transducer blister. Now, let's have a look at this metal-sintered Mercedes frame. The keel probes are screwed into the frame, and instead of airlines it looks like they have internal air channels running through that frame. This frame adapts perfectly into the Mercedes floor and doesn't create any additional blockage. The airlines then run perfectly covered into the transducer blister behind the frame. So that's a complex and very expensive design, but also one of the best rakes we have seen so far. Just imagine if they change their bodywork shape in this area. They would have to metal sinter the entire frame again, and that's not cheap. Also, imagine how big this sinter machine needs to be to produce that frame. Very impressive. Also, we could see some flow-vis on the Mercedes today, which shows the strong outwash around these new side pods. McLaren gave us another insight into their side pod package, and Alpine used some mini rakes today. Now let's have a closer look at that. This is the old school way with a laser-cut metal frame, screwed in keel probes and an airline for each probe. They create a large bundle and run to the transducer in the back. The brackets sit proud on the floor surface. So all of that is adding blockage and changing the flow around the rake. AlphaTauri showed us nicely how their large side pod can keep the front rear rake outboard, and Ferrari showed us how quickly they can copy Aston Martin's T-tray and McLaren's floor edge. McLaren showed us flow-vis at the floor edge, and Alfa Romeo used another impressive coke rake, or let's say a piece of art. What we see here is a compromise between the old school Alpine rakes and the fancy Mercedes ones. Here we see a painted frame with a wing cross section and keel probes mounted to external arms. Each probe has an airline that connects to the frame. And like the Mercedes, all connections run through the frame to the transducer without any more flow disturbance. The large black frame is supported by simple and easy to produce laser-cut metal brackets. Williams had a spectacular failure at their rear axle. We could see smoke coming from the rear upright area first and then fire on both sides at the same time. Usually the rear brake force is generated by recuperation and rear brakes together. Hence the rear brakes are designed too small to do the job alone. If I now have a failure in the hybrid system and recuperation doesn't work, the rear brakes overheat. But that's usually something the team would see coming. Other failures, like a wheel bearing, would usually not happen at both sides at the same time. So anyway, both upright areas burned and it looks like the rear left track rod failed, which caused the car to spin out and then explode the tires. That incident also gave us a good look underneath the Williams, where we could see the rounded nose and a center air intake, possibly for ECU cooling. Haas showed us their side pod package too, and we can see both crash tubes and lots of airlines to correlate the radiator flow with CFD and wind tunnel. Also, Haas got the fastest time on track today. What a happy ending. That's it for today and see you tomorrow.